From the land of conjurers flying through the internet to your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird, this is the witching hours, and we are ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all, wherever and whenever you are listening to this program. I am Johnny the Frost, and joining me, as always, is the medium Jenny Lee. Medium Jenny Lee, are you ready to get weird?
Yes, always.
All right. Well, we're really looking forward to the show tonight. So really looking forward to our guest tonight, and we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to get right to the guest here in just a moment, and we're going to do the news on the backside tonight. But I want to
News
welcome
at the end.
everybody in. Go ahead.
Said news at the end.
Yeah, news at the end. News at the end tonight. So we'll keep you guessing for all the wonderful or unwonderful tidbits with
As long as
snakes.
it's not about plastic or people
Mhm.
snakes biting testicles, we'll be all right.
Yeah, we'll be okay. So welcome in everyone. There's a whole bunch of people in here already. We are looking forward to the show tonight. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you're going to get some questions down tonight because we're going to have a lot of really good things to talk about, and I'm sure there's going to be some interest peaked with our guest. I do want to mention we've been kind of keeping everyone abreast. We'll have some news here hopefully soon about the event we're going to try to do in June. So we got a whole lot of feelers out, and it looks like we're going to make this thing happen. So hopefully here soon, we'll get some news out to you all so we can start making this. I don't know what to call it yet, if we're a Team Weird Con or Weird Fest or something. Whatever we're going to do to be able for you guys to be a part of it.
It was going to be the Team Weird Takeover. I've
Team Weird
already decided it. Yes.
Oh, okay, there you go. There we go. We can start making the flyers. We just don't know where it's at yet. We got some really cool places.
Takes over something somewhere at some time.
All right. So we'll keep you guys up to date. We'll be getting something ready to go soon. All right. You ready for the guest, Jenny?
Yes.
Sam Baltrusis is the author of the new book Ghost of Sleepy Hollow and the author of Ghost of Salem. He is featured in The Curse of Lizzie Borden Shock Doc, has penned more than a dozen paranormal themed books, including Mass Murders and Ghosts of the American Revolution. He has been featured on several national TV shows, including the Travel Channel's A Haunting, Most Terrifying Places, Haunted Towns, Fright Club 1 and 2, and The House in Between 2. We are very excited to speak with Sam tonight, and we know you are too. Please welcome to the show, Sam Baltrusis. How are you doing, Sam?
Hey guys, got my headless horseman buddy with me.
I love it. Perfect. Very fitting.
Yes.
Were we hearing correctly that your book is on the New York Times bestseller list?
No, not the New York Times bestseller. It's the Ghost and Haunting. I mean that's close, right?
Yeah. Well, we were spreading a rumor that you were.
Yeah, we hit the Amazon list, right? Amazon, weren't you on one of the top lists for Amazon?
Yeah, so it's doing extremely well. So the Ghost and Hauntings category on Amazon is actually a big deal. So is, I mean, it's maybe not the New York Times bestseller big deal, but it's still a big deal. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a huge deal. And I've been keeping up with your post, and I saw that it seems to be selling very well. And so congratulations on that.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a labor of love. And it's also because I've written 18 books altogether, and I've written 2 books on Salem. So it's so refreshing to do a different haunted destination. And it gave me an excuse to travel back and forth from Boston to New York to Sleepy Hollow to write this book. So it was a labor of love. A lot of weird stuff happened along the way, but it was a lot of fun.
So what's the premise of the book?
So it's called Ghosts of Sleepy Hollow, Haunts of the Headless Horseman. So when I write my books, I write history books with ghost stories. So the idea is I go to these locations and talk about the ghost lore. But I also use the ghost lore to lure people in for the history. My books, especially like Ghost of Salem, it's kind of like a travel guide for people that are visiting the location. And I focus on some like a lot of the legend and lore associated with the Headless Horseman from Washington Irving's classic short story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. But I also talk about other legends and lore associated with that as well, with the location.
What was one of the most fascinating things you discovered?
So there was a lot. I mean, so a lot of
Yeah.
it for me. So the short story, what's different between Sleepy Hollow and Salem, and there was a lot of juxtaposing the two cities. In
Mhm.
fact, like Salem, like Salem to me is sort of like, because of the witch trials of 1692, there's a lot of guilt involved with when I give tours in Salem, or even just go to Salem. There's guilt because there was a tragic thing that happened in its past. And we've kind of like taken that horrific history and kind of embraced it and said, hey, let's turn it into a Halloween destination. But with Sleepy Hollow, there's not that guilt that you have. That's based on a fictional story that is kind of near and dear to all of our hearts. And we grew up on the legend of Sleepy Hollow. And also too, like the Disney cartoon, I love that cartoon when I was a kid.
I just did a
Ichabod
drawing
Crane
of I did a drawing of Ichabod Crane last October for the Inktober drawing props.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like one of those characters that I always like. I mean, I wouldn't say vilify, but he's like one of those people that I'm like, I'm probably distantly related to the person that inspired Ichabod Crane, because he's like basically me, kind of like nerdy, like nerd, like outsider Yankee that comes in and is terrorized by the ghost of a location. So there was a lot of the book opens. So I decided to go to Sleepy Hollow on Halloween to experience it, because I really like to immerse myself in the location when I write about it. And so I'm staying at the Tarrytown House Estate, which is this beautiful, sprawling, the King Mansion, which is also haunted. And I was heading to Sunnyside, which is where Washington Irving lived later in life. He's the one that wrote the short story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So on Google Maps, it looked like it's an easy walk from Tarrytown House Estate to Sunnyside. I'm like, oh, I can just walk it, not drive there. And so I decided to walk over, and it was horrific. It was like not pedestrian friendly. The cars were zooming by me on this wooded path to Sunnyside. So the opening of my book is me trying to walk to Sunnyside on Halloween night.
Worried that you're going to become the headless horseman.
And and it was terrifying, because I was basically like, cars were going by, and I'm in the area is a really creepy area. It's a very allegedly haunted area. It's right by the Hudson River, and so there's woods. And then so I finally make it without getting hit by a car going up this path. I get into the property, and I hear horse hooves. I see people in cloaks walking around, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And well, you have to read the book, but it was a reenactment, and I walked into the reenactment. So.
Oh my goodness. And you had no idea. So you probably just felt like you walked right into the story.
I had no idea.
That walk from one place to the other was like
to
a
me,
time
it
travel.
really is. It felt, that's what it felt like. And I was in the wood, because I went through the wrong area. Because if you drive in, there's an entrance to it, and so I kind of walked into the middle of the reenactment in the back, the employee staff area, which is woods, and so it was a really, and so the Jonathan Crook, who is an amazing fella, he does the reenactment of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow every October, and he gave a presentation. It was a wonderful presentation right by Sunnyside, facing the Hudson River, and of course the Headless Horseman makes a cameo at the very end. But I had already heard him and saw him on my way there, so I already got the scare early on before it happened.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's interesting too when to go to those places. If you've never been there before, you don't really know what to expect. Like, I haven't been to that area of New York. We managed to go to Salem, and we told the story too many times, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But we managed to go to Salem for the first time a couple of years ago. My father lives in Maine now, and so when we were driving back, we were like, man, we're like not that far away. Like just need to go hit Salem up on the way home. And so we did. But just being someone who's like just driving in from out of town and going to Salem, it was kind of like I didn't know what to do once we got there. Like we found the graveyard and we were able to kind of find some things to do, but it was very different than what we have in Virginia, where you have like Jamestown and Colonial Williamsburg, where like these huge areas are preserved. In Salem,
Yeah.
it was like, here's the graveyard and there's a CVS and a Burger King, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, I wasn't, so if we ever go up there, maybe we can get our friend Sam to show us around, show us around if you're up there. So yeah, that'd
Well,
be great.
and that's the whole thing. Like people head to Salem and they expect it to be like it was in 1692. You know, like
Yeah.
and so I think that, and I did too. Like and same with Sleepy Hollow. Like there's a like you expect it to look like it did when the Legend of Sleepy Hollow was set, which was in the early 1800s. And so that's why I write my books, because my books really tell you where to go.
Mm,
It's almost gives you a tour of the city and how you can make your experience good. Because like my first experience in Sleepy Hollow and in Salem were kind of similar to that. Like I'm like, I don't really get what this is all
yeah.
about, like what the appeal is. But then you spend more time there, you know where to go and how to experience it, and then it's all about the way you experience it, really.
So
Yeah.
that's
It's
what we needed.
interesting.
That's what we needed, Frosty, was we
Yeah.
needed one of
We need to
Sam's
buy the
books.
book.
We went
We
to
need Sam's
Salem.
book. Yep. Yep. We gotta look out. I had a it was interesting because when we went there, I was actually working on I was actually in school still. And one of my classmates was working on his thesis, which he was writing about the Salem witch trials. And he had told me before I went up there, because it's like, I think we might try to stop at Salem on
Mm.
the way home. And he was like, here's the deal. If it says museum, it's a tourist trap. If it says house, it's a historical place. It's like the opposite of what you're used to. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I was trying to figure it out when I was up there. So those little inside information can help a lot when you're trying to figure stuff like that out.
Yeah, and your friend is totally right. Yeah, there's a lot of commercialization going on in Salem, but it wasn't like that when I first started 10 years ago. It's like
Mm,
really has changed over the years. I feel like in many ways it's gotten better in a sense. Like there's the commercialization that's still, they've kind of like capitalized on it. I feel like that Sleepy Hollow is how Salem was when I first started going and giving tours in Salem
mm,
about 10 years ago. So I think Sleepy Hollow is like 10 years behind when it
Okay.
comes to Salem. But again, there's no guilt with Sleepy Hollow, and there's almost a feeling of like I felt like a child, like Halloween, like heading to Halloween for it just had that rustic, like non-commercialized feel to it.
Yeah.
In
mhm.
Sleepy Hollow, in Salem, it feels like that everyone's kind of it's commercialized. It's like Disney World for Halloween
Yeah.
people, you know.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah,
I feel that there's more of an authentic feeling in Sleepy Hollow.
interesting. Okay, so I have a question about this. So Washington Irving, the Headless Horseman, kind of, I don't know. I guess Washington Irving for me is almost like the who's the like the Brothers Grimm or whatever for like American fairy tales to a certain degree. So knowing that a lot of what he wrote about Sleepy Hollow being fictional, what did you kind of find there to that was interesting when it comes to real paranormal investigation?
For Sleepy Hollow,
Yeah.
Hmm.
uh, yeah. So basically, like when it comes to Sleepy Hollow, like the a lot of the so in my book, I do Ichabod Crane's race map, and this is based on Jonathan Crooks' research. And
Hmm.
this really goes into all the locations that Ichabod Crane visited along the way. So if you wanted to like actually follow a path, I would recommend that. I would recommend following
Okay.
the path of Ichabod Crane, and those are like the old Dutch church is pretty famous. Can you investigate there? Not really. It's more it's a church, so it's a
Gotcha.
property that's on the cemetery. So to me, the hub of and this is also for Salem, is the cemetery. So there's a Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, and there's the Old Dutch Church burying ground, which is right behind it, and it's huge. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of legend and lore associated with Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. So that is where like during Halloween, they have a parade. Actually, their parade is at the very end of October, and Salem's parade is at the very beginning of October. So it kind of shows you there, like the Salem is the whole month is packed. Sleepy Hollow, it's pretty much the last weekend. That's sort of like the big time to go. But as far as like investigation, there's a lot of haunted hotels in Sleepy Hollow. The Terrytown House Estate. There are 2 mansions at the property. The King Mansion, and then there's the Biddle Mansion. And I highly recommend staying there. It has multiple locations. Can you like investigate like a public investigation? Probably not, but you can get the haunted room, which is 293 in the King Mansion, and investigate that. So my computer is completely glitching right now. Is it like, are you guys getting any weird anomalies?
We can see it happening on your face.
It like did this weird glitchy thing. Did you guys?
We can
No,
see
we're
it,
not
yeah.
getting any glitches, but it seems like maybe
It's
you're
like I'm
delayed
getting like
hearing us.
taken over by the computer.
You never know. You never know.
I don't know, but
Sam.
I've never seen this before. I'm like, what is going on?
It does seem like it's delayed a little bit for you. Like you're having to wait to hear us.
Yeah, you're having to wait to hear us. If you would like to, we could try seeing if you can reconnect or something like that. If that would help you out at all.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's really interesting because I have done so many podcasts with this computer, and I've never seen this. Yeah, I think we're fine. We'll just kind of go with the flow, right? See what happens.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, we got plenty of time, so I just wanted to make sure that if you have any issues, just let us know, and we can see if you need to reconnect. All right, Jenny, what else did you want to ask about Sleepy Hollow? You got any questions for that?
Well, you were telling us a story before we got on about the Bronze Lady. Is that in Sleepy Hollow?
Yeah, and I think that is what's causing my computer problems. I'm going to blame the Bronze Lady, but
oh my goodness.
But so the Bronze the Bronze Lady is an urban legend that I didn't really know about before I had it. So when I work on my books, I don't do a lot of pre-research. I kind of let the ghost guide me. So I was going to mainly focus on the Headless Horseman, all the haunts related to the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, because Washington Irving actually does talk about a lot of like Huldah the Witch. And like she's part of the lore, and then there's other locations that like the Phillipsburg Manor, like Sunnyside, Washington Irving's home. But the Bronze Lady is kind of a new urban legend that's developed by the locals. So it's one of those local legends. So the story is the Bronze Lady is the statue at the very back end of Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, and the way to find it, it's actually hard to find. You actually have to there's a recreation of the Sleepy Hollow Bridge at the very back, and it's very beautiful. I highly recommend visiting it. But it's to the left, and the thing is, like my first time trying to find it, I was with my good friend April Bousset, and she and I were going to all these haunted locations in Sleepy Hollow, and I'm like, do you want to go check out? There's supposedly a cursed statue in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, and she's like, okay, let's do it. And so of course, we're thinking it was all hogwash. It was all like hocus pocus. But according to legend, if you disrespect her, she will curse you, and she will wreak havoc in your life. And so we go there. My friend April, God bless her, she was taking selfies, and we were like, "Woo!" Like we're the Bronze Lady. And not to say that we were disrespectful, but I don't think that we were going in like I think that we were just sort of having fun, and I'll tell you, I had a series of weird events happen after that. So we go and visit. We had a lovely time, and the first time that we went there, so April decides to, instead of walking, trying to find it, like all around the hills of the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, and it was actually it was fun. It was it was fun in a sense. But then we I go back to Tarrytown House Estate, and I have a series of events happen that I believe may be related to the Bronze Lady. So according to legend, like if you disrespect her, she will do things like have a tree fall on your Camaro, or like in this, like this is in the 70s, just to date her other other things that she allegedly did. And according, like some of the stories are they're like, oh yeah, when I visited the lady, like there was a fire, in the house next to mine, and like weird stories that affect you but don't dramatically affect you. Well, 1 month after having visiting the Bronze Lady in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, I had a fire actually above my apartment, and I was writing the section on the Bronze Lady for my book Ghosts of Sleepy Hollow, and the fire was really a freak fire. A moped caught on fire in the apartment above mine. It causes all the sprinklers to set off, and it set off the sprinklers where it destroyed my apartment. So I had to move out of my apartment, and then and it was about 2 weeks of being displaced, and then I moved back.
Mm.
Wow.
That's incredible.
And everyone might be, a lot of our listeners and viewers are familiar with that because you were supposed to be on our show that week. And when that happened, and you're supposed to be on the witching hours. And so we passed the information along. And so that is absolutely wild. That is absolutely wild.
Hey guys, so I'm gonna try reconnecting because I do think it's got like a bad connection or something. So I'm gonna try doing it again. So I'm gonna log out and then log back in. Okay.
That sounds great. I'll bring you right back in. All right, so we're gonna let Sam try to reconnect, and we'll try to get right back on and get back in the conversation. If you guys have a question for Sam, just to go over it, we have the links and everything for Sam in chat. If you're listening later on the podcast, they'll be in there below. One of those links is to sambaltrusis.com, and you can also find all of his books on Amazon. And when you talk about books that Sam has written, he has written a lot. So for
18 different books.
It's just to go over some of them: Ghosts of Salem, Haunts of the Witch City, Wicked Salem, Exploring Lingering Love and Legends, The Ghosts of Boston, Haunts of the Pub there of Boston, Ghosts of the American Revolution, Ghost of Concord's Colonial Inn. I mean, Sam has really tackled a lot of different topics and for paranormal investigation. Also, a book I was looking at earlier that he wrote called Fueled by Fear, which I want to get into talking with him today. I think you and Sam kind of had a little bit of a conversation about that when we met him at Hanover Tavern at the Paracon there. About kind of what it, about sometimes ghosts not being so nice during paranormal investigations and some issues that sometimes, sometimes people who are attracted to the paranormal can, also be a little nervous of the paranormal. And so that's something that he wrote a book on, Fueled by Fear. So maybe that's something we have a chance to talk to him about a little bit later. So any of those places, hotels and inns of New England, definitely, if you have questions about any of those things, Sam is going to be the one to talk to about it. And he's been on a lot of shows on network television where he's been experts on certain locations. So we're really looking forward to getting into more of the conversation tonight.
That Bronze Lady story is something.
Yeah, and that was absolutely amazing, like I was saying, because I think it was like the next day or something. He was supposed to come on the witching hour.
When that happened. And then when he was getting ready to tell us the story before he came on is when his computer glitched out. So it's like, is the Bronze Lady still listening?
Yeah, because we normally don't have problems with StreamYard. Yeah,
no,
usually goes pretty smoothly.
It's all right. It's all right, Bronze Lady. Everything's all right. We're not talking smack about you.
Yeah, we need to send Jenny into.
We're cool, man. We're cool.
Let's see. CMC said, Sam will need to investigate the ghost of Donegal, Ireland.
Yeah. I think that would be, I'm sure he probably wouldn't disagree with you.
Yeah, we have a guest coming on in February that's going to talk about some ghosts in Ireland. So we have some Irish ghosts coming up.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, it's also a pet medium. So
Oh,
we have
yeah.
some of
All
this
right,
coming up.
Sam's back. Let's see
All
if
right, we
it's
got
working
Sam
better.
back. Welcome back, Sam.
I don't know. I don't know if it's any better, but yeah, this is so weird. I think it's let's blame it on the bronze lady for.
Yeah, I mean, it's good.
I was just telling the bronze lady we're not talking smack about you. Leave Sam alone. We're not talking smack about you.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you, like I believe in like now I believe in her. I believe like if you disrespect her, she'll do bad things, and like this is a great example. And I feel like I've been talking a lot about her today, oddly, with other people.
Mhm.
So I feel like that her energy somehow is interfering with your podcast.
Yeah. I was like, it's all right. It's all cool. We're good. We're good.
Yeah, I'm always worried about like the CIA, but it's the bronze lady that we got to worry about.
Oh my goodness, shush.
All right.
She's listening to us.
Yeah.
CMC Airboss said you should investigate the ghost of Donegal, Ireland. Have you ever been to investigate in a different country?
So I've investigated. So I was supposed to go to England, and like actually last weekend for the unexplained. I have not investigated. I have gone, but I haven't like gone as a paranormal investigator. And so I also identify as a medium, clairvoyant. When I write my books, I tend to be a little bit more objective. Like I don't insert my abilities into it, but I do. It's kind of obvious when you read my books that I have some gifts. You know, like it's sort of like all my interactions are like, why do you have so many ghostly encounters? I'm like, because I'm a medium. But long story short, no, I have not done Ireland, but I would love to. It's like one of those bucket list locations, and I'm slowly I'm investigated pretty much all the bucket list locations in the United States. And I've done some Mexico, and I've done Canada. Now I want to go I want to do England, and I want to do Ireland and Wales, and but so no, not as an investigator.
That sounds cool. Way to make this happen. I had an interesting conversation with you at the Hanover Tavern Paracon, and you were talking about how you had just been a journalist and you were just a writer, and you just started writing about the paranormal, but then you also are talking about being a medium. And then when people started figuring that out, people started asking you, well, have you written about your experiences? And you were a little PO'd about it. I was wondering if we could talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, yes, I'm not. So when it comes to, so I was a journalist for about 20 years, and then I've written 18 books about the paranormal. For me, like the mediumship, that part of it, I was worried about being open about my mediumship because I felt like that it would take away from my credibility, and I still grapple with it. I still grapple with. I write books. It's almost like if you come out of the crystal closet as someone that identifies as a medium, that you somehow lose your credibility as a journalist or as a historian. And if you read my books, there's it's very I have to be open about who I am as a person too. So there's been a battle when it comes to being public with the mediumship. I teach classes as well. I teach a group called Spirit Squad, and there's always the debate whether or not do we want to go public with it as opposed to someone that just wants to focus on our gifts. I mean, as a journalist, I use my gifts as a journalist. I always did. Just wasn't public with it.
Yeah.
No,
I think
well, I mean, I
I
think
think
that's something you can identify with, right, Jenny?
yeah. Yeah, because I was a public school teacher, so I had the same issue, and even now I substitute, so it's like I still have to keep those things separate because I don't wanna be in a classroom with a bunch of kids and then, like, their parents get freaked out because there's a weird woo-woo lady in there, you know? So it's still for me too, it's like there's a line of when it can be open and when it can't be.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like I'm running a mass Paracon, which is a huge event in Massachusetts, and I we're doing an investigation at this mystery location. And the thing is, like, we're renting the place out, but they don't want us to go public with where we're having it because
Oh.
they're worried about it's going to scare the kids that go there. And I'm like, I'm like, really? so
Mm.
so I have to like walk the line of like, okay, we can tell people that, hey, we actually are investigating this location, but not going public with it. So it's kind of this weird balancing act of like
Mhm.
trying, and I can go public with that, but I just can't say where the place is. And like, it's sometimes it's a fine line of walking, whether you could be open about certain things and not open about certain things. But I
Mhm.
just, for me, like, did I lose any credibility as a journalist? No, but you'll get moments like that where they say things like, oh, like, we don't want you to scare the kids. And I'm like, what? I mean, I'm not going to scare the kid. Like, what do you mean scare the kids?
Yeah.
Like I was terrified as a child. So if anything, I identify like
Yeah.
with being scared, you know? So I'm like, my goal is
Mhm.
not to scare the kids.
So you did end up writing a book about your experiences, correct?
I mean, I've written a couple. Yeah. So I wrote, so one of the big things for me, the
Oh,
curse of, and oh, it's cutting out again. Is this
yeah,
still
I
cutting
think
out?
the lady's messing with us again here.
Yeah, it's pretty choppy right now.
Yeah. Now it's the other ghost. I will say that my computer has been kind of acting up today, so maybe it's not her, maybe it's just my computer. But anyway, so long story short, the yeah, go. So two of my books, two of my books were featured on were focused on my abilities. The so the related to evil, and I'm related to Lizzie Borden, and that's where I on the Curse of Lizzie
Mm.
Borden. That's where I came out publicly as a medium, and I was working with Chris Fleming, who's an amazing medium, Dave Schrader, who's to me is he's not a medium, he's sensitive,
Yeah.
definitely. Then I've done other shows where I was public with being a medium, like House in Between Two, and that's where I went on. And I also when I did that show. I didn't know where I was going, and I was working with another medium, and I find that when I work with another medium, we actually amplify each other's gifts together. So
Absolutely.
it actually works out in a benefit where we can kind of like work together and validate each other's what we're picking up at the location.
Yeah.
So I've been lucky to work with some of the best mediums in the field on TV. But then I wrote about a book called Fueled by Fear, and Fueled by
Mhm.
Fear is about all of my phobias that were related to the paranormal. I had a lot of terrifying experiences as a child, and being a medium, like experience walking up to me and not knowing what's going on or what they're trying to tell me, and having attracted maybe the darker energies too. I have a stalker, like a ghost stalker, a man with a hat that I've talked about and written about for a long time. And he also
Mhm.
messes with my computer sometimes too. So every time I talk about him, he will interfere.
Oh, no.
Wow. So there's a widely known paranormal activity of the Hat Man. Do you think that your guy fits into that Hat Man um, lore, or is he like a specific person?
Me, whether it's the Hat Man or if it's a man with a hat. I think it's a man with a hat.
Okay.
And the hat is pure. It's like a puritanical hat. So it's like a hat from the 1600s.
Okay.
My whole because I have had multiple mediums kind of like work with me on this case and investigators, and we've actually done shows on it. The it like he'll say, "What do you want from Sam?" And he's like, he'll say energy. He wants my energy, so he was feeding off my fear. So I was giving him something that he was getting, kind of like using that as food, like it was like energizing him, and I made him stronger. But also too, I've had situations even like before the fire. I saw him right before the fire, and almost like he was like a harbinger, like kind of like warning me about something as bad is about to happen. So I kind of view him not almost like he's just there. He's there to kind of maybe like look out for me. So I don't think it's the Hat Man. I think it's a family member that is from the 1600s, someone I'm related to very distantly. And also too, like, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Hat Man, there's a trademark on the name. So
really,
so I can't write about it. I have to call. There's a whole trademark. So you can't say Hat Man on TV or in books. You have to say man with a hat.
Man with a hat. Oh my goodness.
I had no clue because I had heard about that phenomenon going back, I think, well, for me, I was probably listening to Art Bell, and that's what it was being referred to back then. And so I never knew there was a change in how you could refer to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll name the name, Heidi Hollis. So she wrote a book about it. She actually trademarked the name. And you're right, Art Bell talked about this years ago. It's been a phenomenon for around forever. Like, I mean, I actually listened to that pivotal discussion. He was talking to a Native American elder about the quickening. And this is something because I was doing research, like, what is it? Like, what am I seeing? What's stalking me? And I did listen to that, and he did it I think it was in the early 90s, where he had that famous discussion on Coast to Coast.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because that whole phenomenon, and not with the hat and without a hat, it doesn't really matter. I've run across so many different people that have had those experiences. I'm not I try to say skeptical. I wouldn't say that I'm a skeptic. It's hard to be a skeptic when you're married to a medium.
I know,
but
right?
but I try to keep a level of skepticism to what I'm looking at, to try to discern, what's real and what's not real. What are we finding out? What are we learning? And I've gotten to a point where I've heard so many stories of people seeing things like that, being terrified as children, not being able to sleep at night with a shadow with red eyes or a shadow in the closet and a person with a hat standing over the bed. I mean, at some point in time, you just have to go, man, there's something going on here.
Yeah, so my first experience with the man with the hat with the red eyes was when I was younger, and that's the thing that really terrified me. So I was with my sister. We had a bay window, and we lived on a Satcham Road. So there was a whole Native American area. So this is actually Native American land that we were on. And so I look out the window and I see the red glowing eyes with a shadow with a hat. When I was a kid, that was the experience that terrified me as a child. And then I saw him again many years later. About 4 years ago was the first time I saw him again. And I was working the overnight shift at a hotel in Salem, and it was off season, so there was nobody there. So it was a ghost town. And then I heard what sounded like banging, like a banging of metal. And then I go upstairs to see what was going on, because I thought someone was breaking into the store right next to the hotel. And then that's when I saw him. He had red glowing eyes. He had a hat, and he was looking at me. And I remember telepathically connecting to him. And he was like, "Can you see me?" And I'm like, "Yes, I can see you." So we have this weird connection. And I've seen him multiple times, and usually I hate to say this because I want to, I don't want to see him again. Is like I see him before something bad's about to happen. And so it's almost like a harbinger spirit that's saying, like, warning me about, like the first time I saw my stepdad died right after, and then the second time I saw him, my biological father died.
Wow.
So, and it's been family members too. And then I saw him again right before the fire. So he may, and I actually have a picture of him too. Like I took a picture because I could see him. I'm like, I wonder if anybody else can see him. And I took a picture. You can see like the outline in the wall. So there's something to it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, he sounds terrifying, but at the same time, he shows up in a way it seems like to give you some kind of heads up that there's something happening. So he's a mixed bag, that fella.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I've learned to not be afraid of him because I think he was feeding off my fear, my energy. So it was like making him stronger. So I don't give him that, but I also, I mean, it keeps I'm like, how more terrifying can you be? You know, it gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
Almost like, well, he's not scared, so I'm gonna try to scare him even more this time. But he never has hurt me, but he's actually hurt people that I've been with. So when I say hurt, done stuff like my friend Dana, who's a high priestess witch, she was with me, and I started he took me over. I was almost channeling him when we were filming a documentary in Salem, and I was talking about him. Then I started take him. He was taking me over, and then Dana put up a crystal shield of protection, and then she got what looks like she got bit. There's a bite mark on the back of her leg, and it was really scary. And then I had another friend, Sam, who was also one of my students. She and I were talking, we were going to the Gardner Pingree house, which is we're looking outside. We saw him in she saw him in the window in the upstairs room, and then a rock actually from above fell from the top of a building and almost hit her. It came out of nowhere. It was weird. Wow. Yeah, it's just really weird things happen when it's almost like it's protecting me, but it's protecting in both cases. They identify as witches. It's almost like they're trying to protect me from my witch friends, and I'm like, and it's weird. It's really weird that they're doing that. It's one of those situations that I've learned to warn everybody. I'm like, listen, he has a history of being kind of aggressive, specifically toward my witch friends. So be careful, especially in Salem. But I've also seen him in other places too. And then I haven't seen him outside. I've seen him in Salem, but I've also seen him in my home as well. So I think he's bound in Salem, but he also will visit me if he has to, I guess. He doesn't hurt me, but he can possibly hurt other people as long as I let them know that. I mean, hopefully it won't happen again, but whatever we have to do to protect my friends, I just don't want to put them in danger. That's my thing. I don't want my friends to be in danger because of my stalker.
Wow.
I mean, maybe he doesn't like witches because he's got that Puritan hat.
Yeah. I don't know. And the whole related to evil is I'm related to the Putnam family, and the Putnam family were accusers during the Salem witch trials. And I feel like part of me is is it someone famous? Is it a family member like Giles, or is it someone that was accused by a family member like Giles Corey? I've always suspected that it could be Giles Corey, and his apparition has been seen in Salem, but could it be maybe a thought form manifestation of Giles Corey, not really Giles Corey, but someone that assumes the role of Giles Corey, and that's what I'm kind of leaning toward, that that somehow this thing is terrorizing me to get my fear, and it's kind of trying to tap into my guilt associated with being related to the bad guys, to the Putnam family.
It's interesting because we have a connection there. My grandfather's family was from Massachusetts, and our family goes all the way back to Salem, and I was related to Sarah Clark, who was an accused witch.
Wow.
In Salem. So yeah, we have. It's amazing sometimes, right? How many people, this one little area of the country, but our family trees get so spread out, so ginormous that.
And the thing is, everyone says it's really not that uncommon to have ties to the witch trials. I meet people all over the country. When I gave tours, this is even before I knew that I was related to the Putnam family.
Mm.
I would always attract the ones that are either related to the victims, the ones that were accused, but rarely like and I also bring in the people that were related to the bad guys, but never the Putnams. It's weird. Like that's the one family, and that's who I'm related to. But like I would get people that were related to Sheriff George Corwin, who was the kind of sadistic sheriff. I would also get people that were related to Cotton Mather a lot. So it's pretty. But what's interesting about me is I am actually originally from Florida. So my family is not even from this area. I moved here in the '90s, studied the witch trials in college, written about it as a journalist, and also written about Lizzie Borden, who I'm also related to, for many years. It's almost like I've been like called to these stories.
Called back. Yeah.
And so I feel like, I do feel when I moved back to Boston, when I moved to Boston in the '90s, and I moved back, and I lived in New York City for about 10 years and then moved back in 2007. I feel home here. I really do. I feel like this is where I belong, but I also feel like there's a lot of kind of like ancestral baggage in this area for me that I'm kind of like forced to sort out for the many years of like my family members who did some heinous things, and some of them were victims. There's like it was a mixed bag with my family, but there's a long line of either hunting for witches or or being like a serial killer. Like we're related to also Eileen Warnos, who was a serial killer in Florida. So there's a lot of connection to famous people, and usually potentially famous. They're all women too, which is really interesting. So it's like Eileen Warnos, Lizzie Borden.
Yeah.
Also, we were able, using forensic DNA, to tie Marilyn Monroe. Now that we know her biological father was Charles Gifford. Charles Gifford is also tied to our family. So there's this weird family lineage, and it's all tied to the women in my family, the bloodline. And I feel like I'm supposed to somehow figure this out. And it's a lot to figure out, but and I think that this man with a hat is somehow related to that too. I really do.
Yeah.
It totally feels like it's all connected, especially with you feeling at home there. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And then you do all this work toward it. Yeah. That's not coincidence at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my life, and it seems like so perfect. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm telling you guys, this is, and it's this weird, when like you do things in life and you don't know why you're doing it. And then all of a sudden it all kind of like makes sense. That's what this was for me. And I'm like, why am I so drawn to the Salem witch trials? And even when I was in college, I studied the Holocaust, and like that was something that led me to the Salem witch trials. And like, why was I drawn to that too? Like, there's always like reasons why you're drawn to studying the history of a location, or studying the history. And I think for me especially, like there's a calling here that that I'm supposed to solve something. I hope. I mean, I hope there's a reason why, because it's just a lot of it, especially with the Hat Man, can be a little scary sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of interesting when you're talking about like you're obsessed with something. I've always, since I was a little kid, kind of been obsessed with witches. I was terrified of witches, but I was fascinated by witches at the same time, and it was just like something that I've had ever since I was young enough to remember my first dreams. It was like witches in my dreams, and then my grandfather, like I said, he's from Hyannisport, Massachusetts, and he would tell me like, hey, if you ever want to research your family when you get older, go to the Salem courthouse or whatever, and you can research your family there, because we have family that's originally from Salem in Massachusetts. And then the gentleman I was talking about earlier that I was going to school with, he was doing his thesis on the witch trials, and his family had been accusers, so it had been kind of like a pet project for him. So that's what he was doing. And then he was doing all of his research for his thesis. He came in one night, we were, just outside kind of, shooting it as it was. And he was like, hey, did you know that my family accused your family? And I was like, my family was accused? And he was like, yeah. And that's when he gave me the name. And so it's like, here we are reunited after 300 years or whatever. So it's kind of weird, because even though I knew I had family originally from Salem, I never thought about them participating in the trials. I just figured maybe they were on the outskirts of it, But there you go. Like, and it's kind of weird because there's that fascination with witches for me, and then to find out that that was historically something, I don't know. You don't know what to make of it, but it's interesting.
And and yeah, and I think so. I think like same with you. Like, did you feel like that was like by talking to your friend, like you were somehow resolving some generational issues? Like almost like we're like our task is to somehow undo all the damage that was done 300 years ago.
I don't know.
Or did
I
you?
definitely feel like it might have been for him because
Yeah,
I think he was
yeah.
kind of bothered that before for him. For me, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, for me, like I'm a history person. That's like one of my passions is history. So for me, it was just like, oh wow, cool. My family was part of history. you know. But other than that, like I don't know. But yeah, I think for him there was. I think there was definitely some things that maybe he was working through and didn't even realize till he started writing that paper.
Yeah, for me, like once because I've been giving tours years before finding out that I was related, and actually my mother is the one that she was decided to do find out where we came from, and she knew that we that my great grandfather came from Portsmouth, Rhode Island. So, but that was toward she found that out later in life. We always thought that we didn't know didn't know the history of my grandfather's father. And he's the one that connects us to New England. And we knew that he came on a boat, but he wasn't originally from the area, and he ended up he was the last name is Hughes. We thought that we always thought we were Native American too, and it turns out that we're not.
I
So
think
that
every white person in America has that story.
yeah, like we're like we think that we're Native American, and that's how we like. I remember growing up, and my mom was like, "We should like embrace our cultural hair." Like we would go to like powwows and stuff, and it was like
Yeah.
my mom.
That's
And my,
interesting. Yeah, because I teach about that, and one of the things that I talk about in my lecture specifically is like this myth of the American of the white Americans with Native American background, and I think it really kind of got blown out. People started realizing this is an issue when all those DNA tests started coming out.
Yep.
yeah,
Everybody was getting 23andMe
Native
and
American,
and
0.
because I had the same thing. It was like, hey, hey, your grandmother was half Blackfoot Indian or whatever. My dad's family's from Indiana, so it kind of made sense. And they're like, oh, she had dark hair and dark eyes, and then I got my DNA test back, and it was
0.
Native American DNA. And then I started thinking about it, being a history teacher and teaching college level history. I kind of put things together one day and I was like, 90% of Native Americans died when they contacted your Europeans.
Yeah.
And so the way I explain it to my students now is it's really hard. I'm not saying it's impossible, people do, but it's really hard for European descendants to have Native American DNA because they literally all died.
yeah.
And then just 150 years later, they were all marched from the East Coast to the Midwest, the Trail of Tears and stuff like that. So they're literally, it's maybe if your family is from Oklahoma or Colorado, there's a higher likelihood, but the East Coast thing of having Native American blood is very rare, I think.
Yeah, that's something that, and I've always, of course, been because I thought I was a Native American. I'm like we were like I really thought that we like part of my and we actually so we did the DNA the whatever the DNA testing was.
Uh-huh.
So we're not Native American, but we found out that. And I thought also too, I was also Irish, and I'm not. And I'm like, what?
Oh,
I'm not
really?
Irish either. And so there was all
Mhm.
these things that we thought that we were, but we weren't. But then we found out that we're related to the Borden family and related to the Putnams.
Wow.
So in many ways, it was good to get that clarification because it
It
actually
is.
made more sense. But it also too, I'm like, oh, I really, and I still feel passionate about the telling the history, the correct history when it came to the Native Americans, especially in New England. I mean, they were. I mean, they were. There was the King Philip's War. It was horrific what happened to them, and
Yeah.
and so I'm still passionate about that as well
Mhm.
as a historian. But
Mhm.
but it's also too like sometimes there's a line like is it my story to tell? Like another. I
Yeah.
feel like that it's one of those things that I do write about it, but I'm also I want to be respectful too. Like I want to be
Yes.
respectful to the communities and and there's a lot of historians that that do write about it and do talk about it. I mean, for example, like puckwudgies is a huge topic in New England, and they're little creatures, little cryptids, and they're Native American elementals. And I so want to write about them, but I also don't want to step on anybody's toes, because that is something that's a Native American monster. You know, it's part of their folklore and their tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a matter of just being respectful about it and not trying to exploit their culture, but just to share culture. And I don't think there's anything wrong with sharing culture. I think there's a problem maybe if you're just trying to be
Yeah.
exploitative about it. Yeah.
Well,
There's a fine line.
A lot of Native American tribes, though, are still very secretive about a lot of their information. So to me, it seems like a lot of times if you wanted to dive into it, it's best to ask whoever is in charge, you know, their chief or elders or whoever, for permission first. It seems to be the best thing to do.
And I actually write about this in my book, Ghosts of Sleepy Hollow. So I actually go into a lot of the tropes, whether it's like the bronze lady or the lady in blue, like the different colored ladies. So it's kind of like an underlying feminist manifesto happening in my book. But there's also talking about the Native American tropes, like the sort of the cursed Native American burial ground and sort of trope. And there's a lot of that in Sleepy Hollow, and it's a lot of it's perpetuated by Washington Irving. He's the one that wanted to kind of create the mythic Sleepy Hollow, and he wanted to kind of create the legend and lore to make it more appealing. I'm not sure what his motivation was, but I do know that he did there was a lot of appropriation, a lot of like the cursed Native American land, like Bannerman Castle, supposedly cursed by Native Americans, and there's all these it's a trope, and it's really intense in Sleepy Hollow. It's a big part of their local legend.
There's something interesting about that I wanted to bring up with you, Sam, when I saw you were doing Washington Irving, because this is something I came across when I was doing my thesis work in grad school, which was Washington Irving. And I'm glad that you brought up the using of the trope with Native Americans, because it wasn't just unique to that. So where I came across Washington Irving and used them in my research is I was writing about a history of Christmas. And so I did I ended up doing like how essentially about how Christmas became Americanized, and now the Christmas we celebrate now is really kind of an American Christmas across the world. But what I found was a story that he wrote called The History of New York, Washington Irving. And in that History of New York, he talks about the Dutch coming over to colonize New York, and they had like on the front of their ships they had like the wooden figurines of Saint Nicholas, who was their patron saint. Well, all of this is made up, but he really is, Washington Irving really kind of is one of the first people to put this idea of Saint Nicholas into this idea of what becomes Christmas in America. And so in a lot of ways, Washington Irving is really kind of one of the people who brings this idea that starts conjuring like what we have as our modern day Santa Claus.
So he helped with Halloween and Christmas.
Yes.
Gold stars for you.
So that I actually do talk about that like in my book, because Washington Irving. He was a master when it comes to branding, and that he was really good at coming up with ideas like branding campaigns, like the Headless Horseman is like the ultimate like symbol of Halloween. And the weird thing is, it actually wasn't written. It wasn't set in Halloween. Even the idea when he wrote the story, the Headless Horseman didn't have a pumpkin too. So there was that whole. Yeah, so and that's something that I always thought that there was like the Headless Horseman had a pumpkin. I always assumed that based on the Disney cartoon, but that's something that's been kind of appropriated, like taken over since Halloween. And I think it was actually, if you really look at it, it was definitely right after the American Revolution, but I think it was more set on Christmas Eve, because I think that like that's what they would have the celebrations and tell the ghost stories. Because it was definitely a ghost story telling evening. And I also think that he he was really good at branding, but he's also really good at appropriate, like taking other people's stories and kind of twisting history and making it work for him. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually, like, at the very end of the book, I had Washington Irving I had him on the same page as like Edgar Allan Poe.
Mhm.
And my opinion of him kind of changed a little bit after doing all the research for this book. Do I still respect him? I do, but I just have a different opinion of him than I did going into the book. And I also he didn't really like to write. Actually, he wasn't like one of those people that loved writing. Like the torrent. He did it because it it was a way to pay the bills. Really, it was a sort of like, he had a different approach to it
Mhm.
than what I thought going
Yeah.
into writing Ghost of Sleepy Hollow.
Hmm.
But I also say at the very end that I identify with him because I get where he's coming from. So I just have a different respect for him than I did going into before, because I love that short story as a child, but revisiting it as an adult was really interesting.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I mean, I give him credit just for the fact of, a good story is a good story. And it's one thing I think to completely plagiarize and take and misuse somebody else's culture, but I think, a good story has been a good story all throughout America, all throughout world history, going back to the Sumerians and now be able to go back to like the Epic of Gilgamesh and all the way to the ancient Greeks and like what was a good story 5,000 years ago is still a good story today, you
Yeah.
know. So
And he actually he knew that, so he kind of got
yeah,
the idea of like the good story is a good story. He also got like the idea of like archetypes,
yeah.
and the idea of like for example, like the Headless Horseman really was. I mean, he was in the UK. He was in Birmingham, England, when he wrote the short story, and
Oh, okay.
he did visit Sleepy Hollow as a young boy. He actually grew up in Manhattan. There was the whole yellow fever scare, so he did spend some time in Sleepy Hollow and he loved the stories, like the old the insular Dutch community would talk about the ghost stories and stuff. So he was inspired by real ghosts and real people. But when he wrote it, he wasn't in Sleepy Hollow, and so he
Mhm.
comes back later in life. He takes over the property that inspired the Van Tassel house. It's called the Wolfert's Roost. It was called. So the land that supposedly, so he really made a big deal about kind of transforming what was then called North Tarrytown into what is modern day Sleepy Hollow. So he's really
Hmm.
responsible for kind of like developing the myth, kind of like building it up.
Yeah.
Um, and while he did that, he also, I mean, it's very obvious if you read all of his other short stories that he had some issues with. I mean, I wouldn't say that he necessarily was anti-women, but he definitely has issues with women. You can just see
Hmm.
it underlying the underlying theme, whether it was um, like kind of like internalized anger toward women. I'm not sure what it is, but you can definitely see that there's some issues with women and also with Native Americans. But a lot of people you have to kind of like look at the time in the 1800s. The Native American population was um, they really were big about kind of like making them mysterious and magical and so I guess it makes sense from the times, but it also too it doesn't necessarily you have to look at it with a modern lens and go what is he
Mhm.
really doing here, like when he's writing these short stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot there. There's a lot. Well, I just want to mention real quick before we get in to the next questions here. If you're joining us, if you come in since we've started, Sam Baltrusis is our guest tonight. We're talking about a whole lot of stuff, namely The Ghost of Sleepy Hollow, his new book that's out. You can go purchase that on Amazon. And I have the link for that in chat. And if you're listening later to the podcast or over on YouTube, there'll be a link down below where you can go check out all the books over there on the author page over on Amazon. All the books that Sam has out there that you can purchase, and it is quite a few, and a lot of them they look very interesting. We've talked about that. We've talked a little bit about Salem tonight. And then there was the book Fueled by Fear. When you had gone to reconnect, I was talking to Jenny a little bit about that, and we kind of talked about that a little bit about earlier in the show. So make sure you check out those links. And we officially entered spooky season, right? We can say this is
Yes.
spooky season for sure.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
you feel free about going out and making some spooky purchases. That's for sure.
And don't forget,
and
people in the live chat, if you have questions for Sam, get them out now.
Yep.
Sam's going to be leaving us a little early tonight, so if you got a question for him, you got to do it now.
Yeah, we'll make sure that you get them.
I work the overnight shift, guys. So like I'm actually like so that's when I write my book. So it's actually kind of a good thing. But yeah, it's not always good when you're doing like podcasts and stuff. You have to leave early.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, other than investigations, or if there is any other things, what else do you use your mediumship abilities for now that you've sort of embraced them?
Yes. So when I was a journalist, I used it all the time. So I did. I actually worked as an entertainment journalist for most of the period when I worked as a journalist. But then I also did true crime stories too, and I really I used my gifts as a journalist to get to the truth. Really, but also to the true crime stories, being so sensitive. I remember I did it right before I wrote my first book. I wrote a story. It was a murder case that I wrote about. This young man was murdered, and talking to the parents and connecting like with the spirit of this young man. And I didn't write that in the story because I wasn't out publicly with it, but it broke my heart. It really broke my heart, and it was one of those things that So yes, I used it to get to the truth of what really happened, and the crime in the story was like amazing. But it also, from a perspective of how I felt after writing it, I'm like, I can't do this anymore because it really is too deep and too emotionally. It just really hurt. It hurt me on a really deep level. The emotion of seeing the parents and connecting with the parents, and then connecting with their son, and not really being able to publicly tell them what he was saying, because I was literally, the parents were there. I was channeling the son that was murdered, and it was just like, it was heartbreaking. I knocked my dowsing rods down. Just like, oh my gosh, it kind of scared me right there. But yeah, so I use it, and I still use it. And I did a blog for right before writing the ghost books, I did a blog about made in Massachusetts movies. So I started writing about all the locations where all the films that were shot in Boston or Massachusetts where they're filming. And the thing is, I can remote view, so my blog was perfect in regards to knowing what movie was filming where, and people were like, "How do you know all this?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm getting insider information." No, I was totally using my abilities to know where these locations were, and I was remote viewing, and
That's awesome.
so I was. And I would definitely go out there to check to see, to confirm it, because there was a way to tell, because there's a little sign that they would post to let you know that they were filming something. But then I would use my abilities to kind of go, oh, what movie is filming here? Because they would also try to change the word, so it was the movie. What the cards said didn't say what the movie was. So and so you had to kind of figure that out, and I used my abilities for that too. I'm like, oh, blah blah blah. So I've done it for years. I didn't. It was just more like to get things done as a journalist. I would use my abilities, and I still do stuff now. I mean, even like when I'm planning events, I know who's going to not show up and who is. Things like that. Like I'm just. And they're like, "How did you know?" And I'm like, "I just knew. And I identify as clairvoyant, but I also, I have all the clairs. I'm claircognizant too, so I just know with claircognizant, and I also sometimes clairaudient, and so that will kick in. Also, when I'm with another medium, this is ability that is interesting. That's why I like working with other mediums. Their abilities, I will somehow almost mimic their abilities. So if you're, I mean, are you claircognizant? Are you more like, is that how you like? Do you just kind of know?
I kind of have them all.
Okay.
A lot of mine is clairaudient when I'm speaking with spirit, though.
Okay. And that's the thing, like for me, like I'm with them when I'm get with certain mediums, I'll start hearing voices. And like if you're clairaudient, and like that clair will kick in with me. So it's almost like I'm like I can amplify what the other person's gifts are when I'm with them. And that's
Cool.
like I'm a ghost amplifier or something.
Yeah.
But
You're
yeah,
like you're like a medium superhero.
our medium. Well, or just like a absorb. Maybe it's like a sponge. Like maybe it's the opposite of superhero. It's like the medium sponge that like sponges off other people's abilities.
That made me think about your hat man in the hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he liked my energy. So
yeah.
and so yeah, a part of me feels like that I try my best. You know, when it comes to sharing energy, I think it's really important to protect your own energy, but I also too like you don't want to give your energy away freely too. You want to make sure that that you're doing it and that you're doing it and you're not draining other people's energy.
Yeah. So hopefully, Sam, that's not what you're doing.
Yeah, no, it's not. Maybe
It's
my
actually,
friend, my hat man is though.
Yeah.
that's actually kind of the second time we've talked about that tonight, and I wanted to bring this up the first time, but I'm glad you said that, Sam, because I think it's really cool when mediums work together. Like I'm always trying to get Jenny to work with other mediums more because like I kind of know what she does, but I feel like when she works with another medium, you can get like some really special stuff going on. And
Yeah.
I feel like historically, like mediums tend to work individually, and especially in paranormal investigations, it's like you have the investigators and they bring in the medium. But the more we get to know other mediums, and I've seen Jenny to be able to do readings with other mediums, it's like, man, I think we're kind of missing out on that. I think it'd be cool to get groups of mediums together to do investigations and readings.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that I love it because you know, a lot of people like you have to be able to work well with another medium. For me, I don't have to be in the spotlight. Like that's a big thing with the mediums. They like have to be in the spot. I don't like being in the spotlight, so that actually works well with the ones that do. And I think are you like that too, Jenny? Like, are you like you don't like to be in the spotlight, right?
Yeah. No.
I don't either. And so it's sort of like it's sort of like I'll work with the ones that are like the on TV and stuff, and I'm like, you can have the spotlight. I'm just the guy in the back that's gonna be like, you know, like crying. I cry about everything. So if you see me like do my work, I'm like, oh, you know, they're like, why are you crying now? It's like, come on. But if I'm channeling, like especially if it's an emotional story, which is a Curse of Lizzie Borden, like Eliza Borden, like that story was really, and I was in a deep trance when I was doing that. So I do think it's important that I think it's important that, like as mediums to work together, because what we do is we validate each other. And
exactly.
And I think that you can figure out, like maybe you'll have one gift, Jenny, like you'll have like you'll see and you can go, oh, maybe it's this, Sam. Like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because I'm oblivious. They will have to like literally make it obvious for me, like what they're trying to tell me, because I will not. I'm kind of like the nutty professor. I'm like, what does that mean? You know, like what are you trying to say? And they're like, I'll give you an example. Like I had this one guy go, well, if you're really clairvoyant, what book am I reading? And his grandmother was like reenacting Catcher in the Rye. The grandmother was like literally having she was like doing a catcher's mitt right behind him and then doing like a sickle. I'm like, what? It's like charades. Like I was like,
yeah.
What's she trying to say? And she's like the catcher mitt, and I'm like, oh my god, Catcher in the Rye. So they'll give you symbols that that sometimes are hard to figure out, like what they're trying to tell you. And it's always good to have someone else to go, what are you picking up? And then you together, you can kind of like come up with a solution or find out what they're trying to tell you.
Yeah, it can be very tricky. We have a question from Journey Self-Discovery. She wanted to know, where in Canada did you experience ghosties?
So I've gone to to Toronto. There was, I forgot the name of it. It was like a restaurant, and it was in downtown Toronto. I was filming a show in Toronto, and I did kind of like a lot of the locations. And I went to Montreal too. But when I say like invest, like I love haunted hotels. I'd actually work at a haunted hotel, so I'll go
Nice.
if there's an alleged haunted hotel, like I'll go there and stay there and do an investigation there. So a lot of times when I investigate, and I'll go with like, I try not to go by myself, but I will investigate by myself, which is a major no-no, by the way. You shouldn't investigate by yourself, but I totally do.
I've done it myself too. It's all right. CMC was wondering if you could sense who in chat is claircognizant.
If I could sense in chat who's claircognizant.
Yeah.
No. I don't even see the chat. It's like,
yeah, you can't see the chat.
I'll ask you, like, when you see people, for example, the lady that made my coffee today, she was like, "Are you clairvoyant?" Like, we give off a glow. Like, we have like a glow about us, so you can tell other mediums. But you have to see them. I mean, I'm clairvoyant, so like I have to see you, and that goes for even like, it's weird. Like, I don't turn my lights off. I sleep with the lights on because I like to see what's in my room. And so, like, if I go to an investigation, I don't turn the lights off. I can't see. I can't see like what's going on. So as a clairvoyant, they're like, why do you investigate with the lights on? And I'm like, why do you investigate with the lights off? I mean, I can't see what's going on. And so it's one of those things that you have to sometimes see the people to feel it. So no, I can't tell in the chat room who's claircognizant. Sorry.
Yeah, he said that makes sense. Need the personal connection. Yeah. No, I think I have to have some kind of like interaction. I think maybe at least like some conversation.
Yeah.
For me.
I even like when we were at Hanover Tavern, right? And I didn't even know that you were a medium. And I'm like, are you a medium? Like, either you asked me or I asked you, and I forget. But we were like kind of like looking at each other the whole time, and we're like, "What's going on there?" And you were like, "What's going on there?" And so you kind of just know, but then you're like, you're kind of scared to ask them. You're like, "Hey, are you a medium?"
It was all right because we were at a paranormal convention.
Yeah,
that's true.
We were in the McDonald's line. It probably would have been different.
Yeah, and it was also it was one of our first go arounds. So we were kind of the new kids on the block. We didn't know everybody, and so it was like, oh, there's all these cool people here, and it's like, all right, let's try to break the ice a little bit and get to know some people. So
let's like mingle. We're gonna mingle.
Yeah. It's great. Go ahead.
I will say though, like those events are really good when it comes to networking, because you do meet other people like yourself. And when I first started, I felt so alone. I really did. And that's another thing too. Like, why didn't I not come out? Because I didn't have the support that I have now. And I think that so when I was I was a journalist and I was picking up those extreme emotions. I couldn't say why I felt that strongly emotional about it. I'm like, and now I can, and now I have the I can express how I felt, what was going on. But at the time, I really couldn't explain why I was so emotional about because I was channeling their son, and they're like, "How do you know that? How do you know that?" And I'm like, I wish I could have told them that he was coming through.
Do you think you might ever go back and talk to them about what was happening for real?
Yeah, this was like literally like 15 years ago. To be honest with you, I'm not even sure if the family members are still around. I was communicating with them years after I interviewed them, and I still felt really close to them, and I still do. So I haven't kept in touch with them in the past 10 years, but yeah, a part of me feels like that they kind of already know, because when I wrote the story, I really got him, like I got I presented both sides, but I also really made they loved how I got who he was as a person. And that's another thing too, as a journalist and even as an author, I can because of my abilities, I can really know people. Like I'm really really get to who they are as people. And that's how I use my abilities for that too. So I mean, do I need to reconnect them and tell them? I don't want to re-traumatize them because it was traumatic enough telling their story in the first time.
Yeah, I can see that. Luce was wondering if you'd been to Michigan.
Yeah, so I did the Michigan Paracon for the first time last year, and then my stepdad. So I'm actually originally. So I said I was from Florida. My dad was in the Navy, so I lived in Chicago from 1 o'clock one. So that was 1 until like 8 years old. So Chicago. My stepdad was from Michigan, so I would go to Michigan for the summer. We had a beach house. Like a lake house, not a beach house because there's no beaches in Michigan, but it was a lake house. And so we would go to the lake house pretty much every summer. So yes, but it was more the northern part of Michigan. And did I have experiences there? Yeah, but I was also a kid too when I would go to Michigan. But I went as an adult, as a paranormal person for the Michigan Paracon. And definitely there's a lot, like we were at the St. Marie, Sault Ste. Marie is the Sioux area, and it was very active. Yeah, so I have been to Michigan, just not not a specific location to investigate.
Yeah. So we have just a few minutes before we need to let you go. What are you working on right now?
So really pushing Ghost of Sleepy Hollow. It's spooky season, and I'm going to the Warrens Paracon. I'm heading out tomorrow morning, and that's going to be all weekend. And I'm going to have signed copies. And the thing is, with the Warrens Paracon, like thousands of people go there, so hopefully I will sell out of all my copies. And then, and people are like so. This season is the two books that are doing well that I've written, my Ghost of Sleepy Hollow and my book Ghost of Salem, which continues to be my bestseller. So doing like lectures for Ghost of Sleepy Hollow and Salem throughout the month. I'm producing Mass Paracon, which is October 4th through 6th in Fairhaven, Mass. And that's a great weekend. Patty Negri will be there. Dave Schrader from the show that I was on called Curse of Lizzie Borden. He was also on the Holzer Files. Richard Escup, fellow author, a lot of really big names and people that have that I think are amazing people that you may not know, like Alex Matsuo, who wrote she was actually at the event with us too.
Yeah, she's been on our show.
We had her on the show.
Oh yeah, she's lovely. We're good friends. We did Dragon Con. She was down in Dragon Con in Atlanta with me. But yeah, so just a month full of lectures and book signings and all that. November, I'm taking a break and I'm heading to see my brother in Colorado. So I'm excited about that. Nice. And then December, I am doing an event in California called the Spirit of Christmas, and it's in Jackson, California, which is I've never been, but I always wanted to go to that part of California. It's right by Sacramento, and it looks kind of like a mining town, like based on the pictures. So I'm really excited about that, and also just to connect with the spirits at a new location. And I will say, when you travel all over, I really connect strongly with like elemental energies, and I will say Michigan. Like getting back to the Michigan question, the energy in Michigan is so different than the energy that's in New England versus California. It's I love kind of like experiencing the different locations to kind of feel the energy and connect with the different spirits at those locations. And especially when it comes to elemental energies, it's definitely I'm expecting a lot in California. I think it's going to be a very different vibe.
Wow. Well, if you happen to come, if we happen to get Lake Shawnee booked and you happen to come, there's one there too. So
there is.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, that's the thing for me. Like if yes, I connect with ghosts, like disembodied souls, but the things that I really connect with are elemental energies. Like that's something that I always have connected with, and it's something that I was terrified of, and that's what we talk a lot about in my book, Fueled by Fear. But now that I've embraced that's part of my skill set, if there's an elemental there, I will end up there because like it just will happen. Like they want me to go.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Sam, we need to wrap it up so that we can let you get to
we're gonna
work.
keep you. I do want to say, hopefully we run into you again sometime soon. I think we got
Yes.
some stuff to talk about because you talked about Portsmouth, Rhode Island earlier, and I lived in Middletown, Rhode Island, so I was like right next door to
Oh,
Portsmouth. My
And
dad
he
was also in the
lived
Navy,
in
and
Chicago
I
as a
also lived
baby.
in Chicago as a kid. So we might have to just
oh,
like have a drink or something and talk about what our
yeah,
connection is with Salem and all this stuff we got going
yeah.
on here.
Like, yeah, and it's weird. It's weird that you say that because I do feel that connection. So we do need to talk. But guys, have a lovely
Yeah.
night
Yeah.
and
Have a
Bye,
lovely evening.
Sam.
happy Halloween. Yay!
Yeah.
Yay,
Happy
Halloween.
Halloween.
Thank you
Thank you
for being
so
on.
much. And take care.
All right, good night.
Yes.
All
Bye,
right, good night.
Sam.
All right. And there goes Sam Baltrusis. So good to have him on. We've been
I
waiting
know.
to
I'm
have
waiting
that
so
for a little
long.
while. Yeah. Thank
Yes.
you guys for the great questions tonight. Um, Sam was a
We're
great
in,
guest.
I know. I love
Yeah.
Sam.
Yeah, we really enjoyed talking to him at the Hanover Tavern Paracon. And it looks like he's going to be there again this year. And no promises, but it
Yeah.
sounds like he's kind of interested in joining us on our
He
Team
said
Rare
he had
Takeover
never been to
possibly.
Lake Shawnee and that he would like to come.
So we'll see. We'll see what keeps going on. So I mean,
We're
this
not
could be a
done
pretty
yet,
cool event.
Luna. We have not done the weird things for the night yet.
Yeah, are we ready for this thing?
Yep.
All right, the weird news. So we're going to get into it on the back half of the show tonight now that we had Sam on. All right, first story tonight. We're going to start off a little serious. News story that I picked up yesterday I thought was important is the fact that the U.S. is going to be sending troops over to the Middle East as violence rises between Israel and Hezbollah. I'm not going to get too much into the news story, but it's important to kind of connect here, namely because we're going to have some shows coming up. We have a guest coming up. Well, I'll get the date for you on the 17th of October. We're going to have James Rink on, and we're going to be talking about super soldiers and the connection between the U.S. government and some of these secret programs. So, war makes money.
Mm-hmm.
And so keep an eye out for the American connection to what's going on over there. We have another carrier group going over. They're talking possibly keeping 2 carrier groups. So 2 Navy destroyers and a cruiser set sail from Norfolk, Virginia yesterday, heading over to the Arabian Gulf. So we'll see what happens.
Just as our kid is going to be finishing up his Navy school. Fantastic.
Yeah, so an asteroid will soon enter Earth's orbit as a temporary mini moon.
We were talking about this.
Yeah. An asteroid is expected to swing by Earth next week and then spend about 2 months orbiting the planet as it gets temporarily caught by Earth's gravity. The asteroid, dubbed 2024 PT5, is 33 feet long, roughly equivalent to a standard school bus. The space rock does not pose a threat to the Earth, and it is not expected to stick around for long before it swings back out into space on a path around the sun. It will complete one orbit around Earth, or it will not complete one orbit around Earth, just part of it, said Carlos de la Fuente Marcos, who co-authored a study about the asteroid published this month in the journal Research Notes of the American Astronomical Society. The asteroid is expected to enter Earth's orbit Sunday and lurk there until November 25th, just over 56 days. So maybe Priestess, we need to have a second moon journal just for like a month and a half.
Just a mini moon. Priestess got enough stuff to worry about. Don't give her more work to do.
We want next month, October. We need the second moon phase. I'm just kidding. First of its kind, SETI study probes 2,800 galaxies for alien technology.
Repeat that again.
The first of its kind SETI study probes 2,800 galaxies for alien technology.
Alien technology. How are they doing that?
The SETI Institute, Berkeley's SETI Research Center, and the International Center for Radio Astronomy Research have unveiled a groundbreaking study utilizing the Murchison Wide Field Array in Western Australia. Under the leadership of Dr. Shanoa Trimbley from the SETI Institute and Professor Stephen Tingay from Curtin University, this research marks the first attempt to search for extraterrestrial technology in galaxies beyond our own, specifically targeting low radio frequencies around 100 megahertz. The innovative study used MWA's large field of view, allowing the team to cover 2,800 galaxies in one observation, of which 1,300 we know the distance of, which means that that's 1,500 galaxies that we don't even know how far away they are. Usually the search for extraterrestrial intelligence has focused on signals within our own galaxy. This new approach goes further, looking at distant galaxies, and the approach is making it one of the most detailed searches for super civilizations, those more advanced than ours, to send a signal from another galaxy. A civilization would need technology powerful enough to use the energy of their sun or several stars in the galaxy. So they're looking for big changes. They're looking at other galaxies to see if there's like some superior technological alien civilization that would just be like, oh, look at that. Look how crazy that galaxy is, or something going on there. Yeah, that's what they're looking for. But wow, 2,800 galaxies. That's actually pretty amazing. And the last story for tonight is the world's largest cheesecake served at Cream Cheese Festival in New York.
Now, this is a story that I like.
So not only the Headless Horseman, but New York also has the largest cheesecake.
How big was it?
An annual cream cheese festival in Lowville, New York, hosted a successful Guinness World Record attempt featuring a 15,008-pound cheesecake.
15,000
and 8 pounds cheesecake. The Kraft Heinz plant in Lowville set the record for the world's largest cheesecake at the festival in 2013, but was beaten by a team from Russia who made a 9,000-pound cheesecake in 2017. Derek Langdon, quality manager at Kraft Heinz, said he and his team decided to smash the previous record at this year's festival. If you're going to beat it, might as well go big, he said. We decided we're going to smash that record, make it almost twice as big as the last one. And if they're going to beat us again, they're going to have to go really big. A Guinness World Records educator was present for the cheesecake's unveiling and confirmed it weighed 15,008 pounds, more than enough to reclaim the title of the world's largest cheesecake.
Did people get to eat it afterwards?
And just so you know, the cheesecake was sliced and served to all the festival attendees, and the leftovers were donated to local food banks.
That's a lot of cheesecake.
A lot of people were eating some big cheesecake.
Keisha said, if this moon makes us double emotional, that cheesecake's not big enough.
Right. And that was the weird news for tonight.
That was an interesting conglomeration of news articles that you found for today.
Yeah, we have the hurricane stuff happening too. The hurricanes making landfall in Florida, and I know that North Georgia and South Carolina are already experiencing flooding. Hopefully all of you out there are safe and sound, and we hope the best for you. As for us, we are in the path to get some heavy rain tomorrow and some possible local flooding. And I think we're kind of right on the borderline range of some tornado watches or warnings, whatever the lesser of those are. So I think we're going to be okay. I don't think we're in any crazy danger, except for just having a really soggy day. So hopefully all of you are safe and sound and out of harm's way.
Well,
all right.
It's a good thing this podcast is ending early tonight, because I am literally propped up with 2 Tylenol and some water. I don't know what happened to me, guys, but I started feeling sick about 6:45, and at 7:40 I was looking at my phone wondering if I had enough time to message Allison to come co-host. I was like, it's too late. It's too late.
I thought I was going solo. I thought I was going solo.
I just need to push through it and just prop myself up because I didn't want to miss Sam either. So I'm hoping that I'm just exhausted and that I will be
Get
okay
some rest.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll keep everybody posted on Discord if anything changes for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just to update anybody, coming up next week, we're going to have Michael Schratt, who he was a guest on Contact in the Desert. He's been on Coast to Coast AM multiple times. He's going to be on to talk about UFO crashes and alien recoveries. So next Thursday is going to be a really interesting UFO episode. The week after that, we're going to have Raphael Schizo Lugo is going to be coming on to talk about extraterrestrials as well.
And
James Rink, hybrids. James Rink on the 17th to talk about super soldiers. And then our very special guest, Joe Cunningham, and his paranormal squad. We're going to go on and talk about their paranormal investigation team. And then we're going to kind of end off our spooky season on Halloween on the 31st live. We'll be here on the Witching Hours. It'll be our 3-year anniversary Halloween
but starting
special.
late, starting at 9, not 8.
Yeah, we're going to start at 9 because we're going to do trick-or-treating. And then we're going to come do the show, and we're going to have Irene and Danica on, and it's going to be a fabulous time. So that's what we got coming up. Lots of good shows coming your way. We'll kick off here. We're a little bit early, but we're going to let you all go. Let's go raid out, I guess. We'll go find somebody on Twitch and see what we got.
Said that there's Sheepy, Novia, and Ray of Pandas. Sheepy just went to TwitchCon.
Oh, well, let's do that. Let's go. Because she rated us last week, so let's go raid Sheepy. She rated us last week. Wasn't it the last show we did?
I'm not sure, but I just saw her. Yeah.
No, it wasn't Adam. It was the week with Mike Martin.
Oh yeah.
So that
she went to.
Let's go find out how that went. Find out how that went. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and tuning in and all that stuff. Let's go give some weird Team Weird vibes over to Sheepy, and we'll see you all hopefully tomorrow. Take care. Bye, everybody.